Thank you so much, Earl. Good evening, everyone. This presentation, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, is the culmination of 25 years of my personal experience using 7 Habits and how it's applied to my life, specifically how it's applied to how I have traversed this world of fatherhood. Now, if you're a parent, when I say fatherhood, you could be a mother. The principles apply equally. The one thing I like to remind people, especially parents, is that no matter what you do today or what you did last week, life always offers you a second chance. That second chance is called tomorrow. That being said, let us move forward with the first habit. The first habit of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, habit number 1, being proactive. The habit of personal vision. This habit is such an important habit in order for us to understand and move forward in our lives. First and foremost, you have to realize that circumstances do not control us as we move forward as it applies to fatherhood/parenthood. It doesn't matter what degree you have. It doesn't matter where you've been. Your ability to take a proactive stance is always better than taking a reactive stance. Proactivity is the power, the freedom, and the ability to choose how we respond to whatever happens in our lives. Remember this, you cannot talk yourself out of something that you behaved yourself into. Let me give you an example. You drop your child off in the morning and you tell your child that at the end of the day, when you pick them up, you're going to take them out for ice cream. So that child goes to school, goes throughout the entire day. What do you think they're thinking about? Exactly. Mom or dad picking them up and them getting ice cream. Well, you had a bad day. Things did not go the way you expected. You pick that child up and you don't take him out for ice cream. Then what you've just done is you have now acted in an inconsistent way to what you said you were going to do. And instead of being proactive and doing what you said you were going to do, you now are reacting to the circumstances of that particular day. And we'll talk about that, how that affects relationships later on. Habit number 1, being proactive. This leads us to habit number 2. That habit is begin with the end in mind. Habit 2 is the habit of personal leadership. Now, this one is probably one of my favorites in that it dictates how you live your life. What is your personal statement? Every organization in this country, in this world, has a personal mission statement. What is your personal mission statement? Where do you see yourself a year from now? Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Where do you see your child? If you have no plan, you have no purpose. So you have to begin with at least an idea of where you'd like to end up. All things are created twice, first mentally and then physically. This picture is probably one of my favorite pictures. And it's just a picture of my son. And I carried this picture for 20 plus years. The reason I carried this picture was because this spoke to the habit 2 of beginning with the end in mind. This is why I did what I did. This is why I went to work. This is why I dealt with issues the way I dealt with in order to be as productive a father as I could possibly be. With habit number 2, an example I like to give people is this. If I said, John, let's have lunch next week, next Wednesday at 110th and Lenox, what would your first question be? Of course, where is 110th and Lenox? How do I get there? Do I need a map? Do I need a GPS? You would have to have an idea of where you were going and how you were going to get there. You need to do that as a parent as you move forward in parenthood, especially in fatherhood. We cannot lead others at any higher level of effectiveness than we are currently leading ourselves. So once again, if you have no plan, consequently, you have no purpose. So with habit 2, identify your personal mission and your goal and what you want from your position as a parent. Habit 3, the habit of personal management. Oh, this one is, this one's a doozy because we struggle with this. We all struggle with this. And this is the habit of personal management. How do you use your time? How do you use your time? We all have 24 hours in our day. Now, the question is, how effective are you at using your 24 hours? Do you spend most of your time being concerned with things that are unimportant and not urgent? Or do you spend your time dealing with issues that are important and are urgent? Once we gain control of our time, this helps us as we relate to habit 2, which is our personal mission statement. So as a parent, we make decisions every single day. The question that you have to ask yourself is this: how important are those decisions that I am making on a daily basis, and how do those decisions apply to our personal mission statement of raising our child? Habit 4, think win-win. Boy, if we could establish and use this particular habit in Washington right now, as it applies to the political atmosphere, we would absolutely change the world. Win-win is a frame of mind, and it has to be something that you work at. Win-win does not happen by accident. The win-win philosophy is not just some little technique. It's not just a nice phrase. A win-win person has an abundance mentality, meaning that his or her paradigm of life is that there is plenty out there for everybody, and there's plenty out there to spare. You don't apply win-win to all circumstances and all relationships, then what you have is you have unexpressed feelings. So as we raise our children, they go through different periods in life. And the first stage that they go through is dependent, when they're dependent on you. As they move from dependence to independence, we have to work with them. We have to listen to them. We have to meet them halfway, because if we don't, that creates a situation of unexpressed feelings. And unexpressed feelings don't die. They are buried alive, and they come forth later on in ugly ways. If you do not listen to your children, if you do not listen to your spouse, if you do not listen to your coworkers, it creates a situation that's not win-win. Leads us to the habit that I love this one, because this is probably, in my opinion, one of the most important habits of the 7. They're all important, but this one just spoke to me very differently, and I've applied it to fatherhood. And I think personally, this is the one that you have to master. Habit 5, the habit of communication. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Seek first to understand, and then to be understood. When I was growing up, my mother always said to me, she said this often, she said, son, you've got 2 ears, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. That being said, you ought to listen twice as much as you speak. And to that, I always said, okay, but how well do we listen? Do we listen with our eyes and our hearts, or do we just simply hear words? And so many of us, we hear people speaking, but we don't really listen. And there is a difference. And one of the examples that comes to mind, and because it's a recent example, my son is an athlete and he plays baseball, and he plays Division I baseball. And earlier this year, he was at University of, the school's irrelevant, but the school that he was at, he was on a baseball scholarship. He called me one evening, and he says, "Dad, I got something to talk to you about." I said, "Son, what's going on?" And he said, "Hey, today the coach took my college scholarship." I said, "What?" Didn't see that coming, but coach took his college scholarship. Nothing that he did per se, but he only pitched 3.1 innings, and as such, they make these decisions at the Division I level. Long story short, he gets off the phone, and as we're having the conversation, I asked him, "Well, how are you doing, son?" And his response is so typical of young people. He said, "I'm doing fine, Dad," and he hangs up the phone. Think about it. This kid has spent his entire life pursuing a goal. It's taken away from him, and he says he's doing fine. That's just, it doesn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense to me. And I heard something very different. I heard a human being that was struggling, that was suffering, that was questioning who he was as a person. When you practice listening at that deep level with your eyes and your heart, you will hear things that people aren't necessarily saying. Well, to make a long story short, I ended up leaving the next day, and we went up to the school and we brought him home, and that's it. And the reason being, it's because we listened and we heard. So listen, seek first to understand, then to be understood. I absolutely love this. And this leads us to habit 6, which is synergy. Synergy is huge. Synergy is one of those things that we should be moving towards in our personal lives. However, most of us aren't even aware of synergy. So before I go any further, let me explain what synergy is, or let me explain the concept. We have to work with other people to accomplish goals and to come up with solutions. Let me repeat that, because it's really simple. We have to work with other people to accomplish goals and to come up with solutions. That being said, we understand that in the workplace, we understand that in other groups, civic organizations, but do we understand that in our homes and in our families as we raise our children? Most of us grew up in the era where our parents felt that everything they said was right. And they always said, at least my parents did, "Do as I say, not as I do." That's not how it works in the real world. In the real world, we function on this premise. We look at the opinion of person 1, we look at the opinion of person 2, and then we try to come up with a third alternative that makes everybody happy. That is the concept of synergy. The reason synergy is important is simply because of this. We don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. So no matter how right we think we are, 9 times out of 10, we are not as right as we think we are. Therefore, we need to synergize, and synergy is the habit of creative cooperation. And so something to think about as we're raising our children, especially when they are in that independent stage and they're trying to establish who they are. Leads us to habit 7. Probably the most important. Well, I probably said that about a couple habits, but this is the most important one. Habit 7, sharpen the saw. This is a habit of self-renewal. The idea behind sharpen the saw is this: every single day, we have to take small positive steps to renew who we are. Well, what does that look like? Maybe you run, maybe you get up at 5:15 in the morning and you go to the gym. Maybe you get up in the morning and you speak with your maker. Whatever it takes for you to be a better person, you have a responsibility to sharpen the saw, do whatever it takes to take care of you. This habit of self-renewal it's of the most highest importance when we're raising our children, because they take so much from us, as does our jobs, and we have a proclivity of giving everything we have to the projects at hand, and we forget that we are extremely important, and in order for us to be able to help others, we've got to be able to take care of ourselves. And once I understood this, you know, it was an eye-opening experience, because as a father, I thought that my entire being was dedicated to my child or to my family. No doubt it is, but you've got to take care of you, because if you don't, you simply aren't good for or to anyone else. These 7 habits, they are not independent, they work together. And they're kind of like building blocks. Let's go over the 7 habits and how it affects and how it applies to you being a better person, not just in your household, but at work, in your social civic organizations. If you understand these concepts, it will truly alter and change the way you look at the world. Habit number 1, being proactive, speaks for itself. Habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. Be purposeful. Habit number 3, put first things first. Prioritizing what is important in your life. Habit number 4, think win-win. And when we say win-win, we're speaking about all aspects of your life: home, work, school, civic organizations. Think win-win. Habit number 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Habit number 6, synergy. Synergy, synergy, synergy. It's not just about me. It's not just about you. It is about us as a collective creativity. Habit number 7, sharpen the saw, the habit of renewal, of self-renewal. This is the book. Read it. It will definitely change your life. As always, whenever I have a presentation, I always remind people of this. If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten. If you ain't got what you want, you need to stop doing what you've been doing so you could get what you ain't got. My apologies to my English teacher, but hopefully you get the message. Until next time, we'll see you on Dad Talks.